In my first book, In Sheep's Clothing, I talk about all of these tactics and behaviors as offensive power tactics. And the reason I do that is because traditionally, many of the things that we're going to be talking about have been regarded by classical psychology as defense mechanisms, ego defense mechanisms, with the thought that they operate unconsciously. That's the nature of a defense mechanism, that it's unconscious, that its primary purpose is to prevent against the experience of unbearable emotional pain and to quiet anxiety and basically to prevent something feared from happening. So it's a defensive posture. And what I realized early in my work dealing with disturbed characters and especially their victims is that this view really kept people from seeing the main thing that was going on when people engaged in these behaviors. Most of these behaviors are actually conscious. They're habitual mental behaviors, so they're fairly automatic, but the person knows what they're doing. And they're not primarily designed to prevent something feared from happening, but rather designed to ensure that what the person wants to have happen, happens. So they're more offensive in character than defensive in character. And they also don't serve to quiet any anxiety. They're frankly a reflection of the fact that there's not enough anxiety present. So keeping in mind this, it's important to recognize that whenever you witness any of these behaviors, the person, this is so important, the person exhibiting them is primarily not defending anything. They are primarily, at the moment they're engaging in the behavior, they are primarily fighting. Fighting how? And fighting whom? Well, actually fighting you for position, fighting against internalizing the standard they know you want them to adopt. So fighting the socialization process, and also covertly fighting to gain advantage over you by somehow convincing you to concede their point of view, to giving in, throwing in the towel, seeing things the way they want you to see them, getting off their back, and therefore being manipulated. So it's just like when I make the successful excuse. We use that for example. As soon as I get you to buy it, that I was justified. If you buy my justification, not only am I going to do it again, but you back down from your confrontation. You may even begin to see things my way. You may not even call me out on it the next time. You may even really believe what I said when I inferred that it was your fault in the first place, that I did what I did. And what I realized early in my work is that people got taken advantage of because they were so programmed by our traditional models to see the person as being in a defensive as opposed to a combative posture. When people are using these tactics, above and beyond all else, they are fighting for advantage with you. That's so important to remember. One of the reasons why folks get manipulated by these tactics is because on an unconscious level, when a person very skilled in the use of these tactics barrages you with them, what will happen fairly inevitably is that unconsciously you go on the defensive, which is why you start backing down. But objectively, it's hard for you to see them purely as somebody on the attack. That's the secret of manipulation. That's why the tactics work. unconsciously, you get into the backpedaling mode. You intuitively know that you're under fire, so you start backing up. But objectively, you can't point to anything that looks like you're in a fight or that you're being pummeled. Or you buy the programming that we gave you from our traditional models that says this person is protecting themselves when they're anything but in the defensive mode. They're in the offensive mode of behavior. So how you get bamboozled, how the manipulation works is you go into the backpedaling mode unconsciously, but objectively you don't see the person who has pushed you into the corner as a person on the offensive. That's how they do it. That's why it works. That was the discovery. And that's why I have relabeled most of these behaviors. At first I relabeled them offensive power tactics, but because they have more functionality than that. So I now call them responsibility avoidance behaviors and tactics of impression management and manipulation. They serve many roles, these behaviors do. And they're automatic behaviors. Some of them are automatic mental behaviors, but they're fully conscious and intentional. These folks know what they're doing when they're doing them. So when they're actively making that excuse, it's not like you were programmed to believe that they are rationalizing to defend themselves against feelings of guilt or shame and to quiet any internal anxiety. When they're making that excuse, they're making a case that they ought to be able to keep doing this, and you need to cave into that point of view. That's what they're doing, primarily.